Okay, we have time for another round of questions, so let's see how many we can get in and get done. If we can keep answers as short as possible and questions as short as possible, please.
Got the mic?
Oh, have we got a microphone?
I think my voice gets into it. Can you hear me, everybody?
MashaAllah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. This is Dr. Sheikh Ramzi from the Oxford Islamic Center. I want to give a very brief explanation, which I vote for the Remain, and of course I asked my families to vote for Remain only because of the refugees, not because of the Muslim situation, not because of that, only because of the refugees. I knew the poor things, they are dying, and I would like, or I'm fighting with the government to bring 2 million refugees here. When of course, inshallah, when of course what happened, we did not get it. And of course, I was talking to one of the minister of the West for the leave. She was a tourism minister, and I said, "You are heartless people." His friend, of course, so you're heartless people. These people are dying. You just stop these people to come. Stop everybody is poor to come in here. Is that right? In Islamically, no, it's not right. And I said, okay, I give you a question, which I want to give you a question to the brother and sister on panel. He said, okay. You know, we are short of the doctors, and the NHS gets a long queue, and the schools are full. Okay, if we get 20 million people here, 20 million, for example, 20 to 12 million coming from for example, Turkey, from Romania, from Greece, from other countries which are very poor. This country, Al-Hamdoon, is very poor, very rich. So, but how many? 10 million people got a millionaire like the brother. You don't think again, what happened? He said, tell me if you Remain. And this would happen. What happened? What would have happened? What would have happened? What is next? The schools are full. The people coming, there is not enough food. The queues coming for the NHS, a long queues for the NHS. At the moment, we got 2 or 3 weeks. Now, what happened?
To move you to your question.
Yeah, that's right. The question is, what next? Now, we won, we come, we are in. What next? 20 million people coming. What next? He asked me that question. I'm asking you, what next?
Okay. We've got a question here in the middle row, if we can get the microphone down. Or we could just pass it across.
Yes, sure. Get it passed on, please.
And we're going to have to battle through these questions quite quickly.
Thank you very much. I've got 2 short questions.
The microphone is off.
I've got 2 short questions. Something that was not suggested on the panel is joining existing political parties. I see that a lot of people are recommending that Muslims start at grassroots levels, go to activism, leadership and everything, but I see everything revolving around the Muslims in the Muslim community. What do you think about joining existing political parties and trying to influence them from inside rather than work on our own organizations and people? That's one question. My second question is, nothing breeds success as much as success. So, for example, what model have the Muslims in this country have been able to achieve in terms of changing policy or influencing the population that we can follow? And if this example does not exist, then I think we should all Muslims organizations should work toward one successful example, carry that out, and then make that our model, and then we can repeat it again. But I feel that there's, despite of the fact that the panel, there are so many Muslim organizations, they're all covering all sorts of different angles of Muslim life, Muslim experience, very valuable, but I feel that they haven't put their heads together and come up with a project that Muslims in this country can rally around, can work towards, and can learn from practically on the ground.
Thank you so much. Okay, any more hands? Okay. We've got some down here. I only have to take people who haven't spoken, I'm afraid. So if I can have the person, just here in the red top, lady in the red top.
Red top? Oh, right.
That's what the red.
Is it on? Can you hear me?
No.
You have to order.
Hello? Yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much for that great discussion, which is a much needed discussion actually. I'm Uzma. I've got a background in researching children's lives, and so I recently was working at NSPCC's minority ethnic team, looking into safeguarding Muslim children. My master's I recently did was investigating Muslim children's religious identity, came across some really interesting findings. One of which that some Muslim children are hesitant in reporting instances of religious bullying at school because they're worried about endorsing negative stereotypes of Muslims. Similarly, they're feeling disconnected from mainstream society, frustrated because the representation of Muslims and Islam in the media don't reflect what they're experiencing at home, which is actually their religion can have a really positive effect on coping with stress at school to more serious circumstances such as deaths in the family. And also, I think they're very particularly vulnerable to the prevent strategy of being reported in classrooms. So what my question is to the panel is, post-Brexit, what can we do to protect Muslim children? I think Muslim children particularly are a group that haven't been heard of within the Muslim community, perhaps. They don't have a voice of their own. They haven't got the opportunity to engage in these sort of political avenues. So what can we do to protect
Thank you very much, Sarah.
Thank you.
I'm going to cut you off there. Okay, I think we've got time to just fit in these last two questions. If I ask for the microphone to the person next to lady who just asked her question.
Hello, Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much for everyone what you said this evening. I just have a very quick point to ask Mr. Khalil Charles. You spoke about taking hold of our own narrative, and I totally agree with you there. I think with the social media that's available to us, everything we have on the internet, we have an unprecedented way of giving more information about what it means to be a Muslim to more people. But one query I wanted to raise with you was with the project that I'm involved with, Charity Week. What we find is that when it comes to building our own narrative, when we're trying to get the message out, often we find that we're just preaching to the choir. We're only reaching the people who are already involved with these kind of projects, who are already active. What's the best way to start engaging people who are not so active, or in fact maybe non-Muslims as well? How do we go up against such a well-oiled mainstream media that can do away with any kind of restrictions on what they're portraying, whereas we obviously have to follow our Islamic code?
Thank you. And right here at the front.
So I'm guessing I'm the last one, yeah? Right, so let me introduce myself. My name is Shah Abbas. I actually come from Glasgow, so I get your brave hard story, even the people don't get it. I'm actually a financial advisor for a living, so a couple of things, people forgot to mention it, or I was a wee bit late. So people actually made money from the Brexit. Just to let you know, I think the portfolio has increased by 8 to 9% just in the last 4 months. The reason why is because pound went down by 8%. But guess what? The dollar's made really well, so we had monies invested over there. So not a lot of people losing. There's a lot of people making money. Now, I just wanted to just answer one of the brother's questions up there as well, if you don't mind. He mentioned a point about Islamophobia. Now, I'm part of an organisation called Who's Hussein. What we're part of is every Saturday from 6 to 8 p.m. in Charing Cross, we hand out food for the homeless, and we speak to the public. We don't sell Islam. We speak to the public and say, this is who we are, what we do. And people like the idea. So I just got one story. It takes literally 20 seconds. So let me just go into it. If you guys heard about...
20 seconds, please.
15 seconds, I'll get it done. Have you guys heard of a place called Michigan in America? So in Michigan, I think it was back in January 2016, Obama declared a state of federal emergency because the water got contaminated. Do you guys remember that? So Who's Hussein is a Muslim organization. They came in with 30,000 bottles of water and helped the society over there. I think these are the organizations we need more in this society. When you see you have a problem, these are stepping up and literally taking in charge and actually fighting against injustice and inequality, and water itself is a right. I think we need more of this.
Nice.
So I think this is us making a change ourselves, and then we get other people getting involved. We've got to make ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm really sorry we haven't got time for any more questions. We are going to have to move to answers and final comments from the panel, so if everyone can keep their remarks as brief as possible, and then we will start with Talha again.
Okay. I'll just address one point, and
I'm sure others will pick up the others. Positive examples. I know we get depressed and when we see all the negatives. There are many examples of positive achievement. Islamic banking, Islamic schools, these were not possible in this country because legislation simply did not permit. Organizations like MCB played a significant role in doing that. the question, in a faith question on census, Shanaz had some involvement with it as well. Itself is an example. I know we don't see it on a daily basis, but one current example, you'll see that Labour shadow Home Affairs team is quite critical of the current prevent narrative and so on. That is because organizations like MCB invested heavily to persuade some of them, and they were open to it. In fact, we ran a whole session, a select committee type session for Labour shadow Home Affairs team. They still haven't gone to a position where we would like them to, but they have made their position change quite a bit. I'm advising a group of 20 MPs who has got a private setup where they are trying to bring a new narrative. And you'd be surprised to know that these MPs are not known to be left and liberal leaning. And yet they genuinely recognize that the counterterrorism narrative that we have developed in this country is unhelpful, both for the country's wider, if you like, democratic health, and also because it is outright, Islamophobic. So change can happen. Yes, it's not happening as much as we'd like to, but it can happen. But for that change to happen, I would hammer in the same message again. Yes, we need that messiah to rise and say, I will be the change maker, but each one of us need to ask that, can I be that messiah? Let me try to be that. If I can't, obviously I'll give way to whoever comes and does it, but each one of us must become the change maker. Yes, join the political parties, but without support behind you, many has tried and failed. So ultimately we have to change ourselves, we become the change makers, and then we can change things.
I'm going to touch upon the questions you raised, primarily focus on that. In terms of political parties, definitely. I think that the reason why I don't think we've focused on it currently in this discussion is more so I personally feel that we overemphasize sometimes the need to not overemphasize. It's definitely important. Engaging with a government is very important, but we're always like pointing the finger at government and then not really looking at the other possible ways of engagement. For many people, they seem to think it's either government or nothing else. And definitely government is a way, and joining political parties is actually, I'd highly recommend that. I think it's incredibly important. Like right now, we've just seen a leadership battle take place, or rather, it was very quick, because obviously Theresa May was made Prime Minister, but we do have another one coming up in terms of Labour. A bit late now to engage with that, but the point is, if Muslims had been part of these parties and involved in the process, they could very much have a real impact as to who the next leader of this country is. And I think sometimes, yes, we do forget to emphasise that enough, and that's something we definitely do need to be pushing more for. But it's not the only option available to us to engage. I don't think we should really remember you have so many options available to you. Just to give an example, I'm involved with a commission at Citizens UK. Some of you might have heard of Citizens UK. They are, mashallah, a non-Muslim organisation, very grassroots led, very big on community organising. They of their own, actually this is through MCB work as well actually, they've launched a commission specifically looking at Muslims and public life and participation of Muslims in public life. And it's essentially looking at what barriers exist for Muslims. It has, in terms of the commissioners involved, a very high level politicians, academics, lawyers, really, and media as well, like Peter Obon is part of this commission. And I sit on the Young Leadership Group, and there's also a Muslim Leadership Group, which includes sheikhs and so on from different mosques and different community leaders. And what's really amazing, I've been really struck by this, especially because it's primarily non-Muslims that have been pushing this, is this commission is basically welcoming views from anybody, whether it's me, you, anyone, could literally write a submission, come and speak directly to these people in a hearing, and offer your views on what you believe is what. And what's really interesting is this point on prevent is come about so strongly through those Muslims who have actually engaged on that level. It's come back again and again and again. Prevent. We all see the problems with prevent. Media representation. There's not a single person on this commission who disagrees with this. There are so many people who have come to them and told them there are so many problems here, so they can't ignore that. And I think not many people know about this commission, which is a real shame. And that partly maybe Citizens UK could do more in terms of pushing it further out. But also Muslim organisations I know have been contacted about this and often haven't engaged properly with it. It's just another email that they think, oh, I don't really trust the names on this, and haven't engaged with it. And that for me is a problem, because that was actually, it has such incredibly credible people on that panel, and it has an opportunity, with I should say it's still ongoing actually. So if anyone did want to get involved, it's still very much open. And they're putting out a report probably by the end of this year. So I'd look out for that. I'm sure the MCB will be putting things out about that as well. I mean, that's just one example. So that's why I'm saying it's not just about the parties. It's not just about your MPs. It's not just about, you know, the political, so to speak. There are so many other political ways of getting involved. And sorry, I can't speak much about children. I would say I reckon it's a lot to do with talking to parents in terms of really, maybe it does need to require a top level down sort of thing in terms of educating parents as to what's what. I think many parents aren't actually aware of the technicalities in terms of legislation and the impacts on potentially on their children, and it is a real definitely issue. I do feel there is a real scope for mentorship in terms of Muslim communities. We need to be building more mentors, people who are open to actually, you know, the young professionals who have a lot to give and a lot to offer and need to be talking more to young people. And just, I've always been told, people come to me and say, oh, you need to speak to younger people. I think I don't really have much to tell them, but then actually for somebody younger than me, that just the fact that I've gone to university, I'm working in a job, whatever, that's enough just to give them some perspective and ground them in terms of what they might want to do in life as well. So that's it.
I'm going to touch on you very quickly on your point about political parties, because I don't think membership is enough, right? I mean, joining a political party is what you make of it, and I think sometimes people assume that simply joining a party makes you part of it. But it requires you to be so involved in local party associations, actually give up your time to sacrifice for party goals, and that's a really important part of being a member of a political party. We shouldn't stop at just assuming that joining one and we've done our bit. On Muslims rallying around a project, I mean, I could add to some of the examples that Dal has given. If I reflect on some of the work that we did at MEND with the Leveson inquiry, I mean, some of the changes that you've seen in the way that media now regulates, I mean, not sufficiently well, but certainly some of the changes that we've seen came about because we engaged with that inquiry and provided evidence. And then in 2012, when we started lobbying police and crime commissioners to record Islamophobia as a category of crime, that was something that only one force in the UK was doing, the Metropolitan Force, that started it in around 2006. And then last year, 2015, so 3 years after we started our campaign, David Cameron announced that all police forces, as of April 2016, would start recording Islamophobia. And one of the things that we will be looking out for in the post-Brexit coming months is to what extent are police forces doing that well, because we now have 1 quarter's worth of data, and we want to know to what extent police forces have been cataloguing Islamophobia as a separate category of crime. So I think there are actually a lot of examples in the community, and we sell ourselves short if we don't highlight just how much we have done, over the years. The point about Muslim children, this is a really interesting one, because I don't know if you... I mean, the first is in the post-Trojan horse environment, we're finding obviously that parents are quite nervous about taking on roles as Muslim governors, and often that would be one mechanism in which they could be involved in the schooling structures. That's something that we will have to look out for. I'm rather more concerned that the NSPCC has now started rolling out using the helpline as a mechanism for responding to fears on radicalisation. Now, if you were a Muslim child in a school that felt stigmatised from Prevent, where would you go? And I wonder that the NSPCC hasn't given consideration to the way in which being part of or implementing Prevent, it will have a impact on Muslim school children that rely on that service as a mechanism to actually feed into a process where their concerns are taken seriously. But the point of optimism, I would note, is that Kevin Courtney, who's been recently elected as the General Secretary of the National Union of Teachers, certainly gets it when we talk about Prevent having a negative impact on Muslim children.
Okay, very briefly, political parties, I think has already been said, and I think the right things have been said about getting involved, not just simply being part of the membership. Muslim children, I'll only say one point, and that's the point which I'm concerned about. In terms of Muslim children who don't have parents and fostering and adoption, we still have a problem within our own Muslim communities, and that is, unfortunately, that the racism that exists within our community means that some of the Muslim children from Africa are not being fostered. And you can ask any fostering organisation, this is quite prevalent. And I think we need, in terms of protection, we need to address those issues in order that Muslim children be taken by Muslim parents, rather than going to a situation where they're being fostered by non-Muslim parents and therefore losing a bit of, if not all, of their identity. Okay. The question you asked me directly about narratives, I think what's important with these narratives is that it emboldens people. And it's not just a case of saying we're preaching to the converted, it's a case of saying that if a young person feels that they are able to deal with these issues and not feel shy or not feel reticent about the kind of public pressure there is or the kind of narratives that come out of the media, they're able to better deal with the people around them. And they're better able to give that message to the people around them and better able to be confident about who they are. If I take from my own experience, as a black person growing up in Britain, knowing a bit about my own historical context in terms of going to Sunday schools and in terms of going to extracurricular schools and learning about my own historical background was essential in terms of the way I viewed the world and in terms of the way I combated those who decided and that they had a problem with me. And I never saw that problem because I always had that confidence enough to say, well, you know, I am what I am and I'm proud of who I am. And I think that's one of the things that we as Muslims sometimes we don't realise that our young people coming up don't have the arguments, are not equipped enough to deal with the narratives that face them. In fact, they crumble to them. They get confused about what the issues really are, and they concede, and often they capitulate on things that they shouldn't be, especially when it comes to the beliefs and the belief systems around our religion. So to answer your question very shortly, the narratives are the narratives that help the broader constituency of Muslims in this country in order to understand how best to deal with the pressures that are against them.
Very quickly, 2 points. First of all, I'm quite pleased as to the kind of discussion that we're having today. And I think that this heralds quite an important process that maybe either MAB or other organizations could actually start. And that is, of course we need to respond to daily challenges. Of course we need to respond to policies that come up. Of course we need to respond to statements and such. But there must be amongst our activities, our public meetings, there must be those that are dedicated to strategies, to thinking about the future of the Muslim community here in Britain, to thinking about how we want to be within the context of a British society, prosperous, safe, stable, successful, peaceful, tolerant society, comfortable with itself, pursuing honourable policies, whether it be internally or abroad or the such. We need to think about, education. We need to think about the finance. I mean, we're one of the richest, if not absolutely the richest minority community within the UK. But we're seeing virtually none of that. We're giving as a community hundreds of millions as we see. But in terms of building the infrastructure, the building blocks that really make up for a community that has an impact on its context, we're really not seeing much of that. I mean, I'd like to see Sheikh Ramzi and others, ulama, the scholars, maybe coming up with, meeting with the charitable sector and saying to charities that it is incumbent upon you that whilst you gathered in Ramadan and throughout the year hundreds of millions, 10% of that must remain within the UK at least. I would go as far as to say 50%, but let's not go there. 10%. I mean, and dedicate that to really building the institutions. So I'm talking about schools. I'm talking about training. I'm talking about development. I'm talking about the rehabilitation and the building of the youth capacity within for the future of the country. Media, I know Khalil and others have talked about it. So I think that this is something which is extremely important, but generally within the theme of starting this discussion about the strategy. What is it? What is it that we want, for the future of our community? Responding to the today and now, obviously that is going to happen. It's very, very important. But I think that part of what we talk about needs to be about strategies. And very finally, Suha, you mentioned about success stories and everything Talha and Ala and Shahnaz have said, absolutely. But I point to something that's still fresh in my mind because I've just come back from Cardiff. And in Cardiff last night we had a screening of a film which I would call on every one of you to try to watch. It's an independent film, it's self-financed, but it's a beautiful, wonderful, award-winning film that was released in 2014. It's called We Are Many, and it tells the story of the 2 Million March in London in 2003. And in virtually every single clip, you know, the presence of MAB as well as the Muslim communities in their, you know, various guises is there. And, you know, especially after Chilcot, when now we look back and everything that the anti-war movement said and everything that we stood for proved to be correct. You know, now is the time to really celebrate the fact that we, on the 15th of February 2003, you know, we were part of a movement that arguably, I said yesterday, arguably, was the most glorious day in modern British history. And it was glorious not because we achieved some sort of political milestone, or because the Queen celebrated her birthday, or because our armed forces did something heroic, but it was because the people, and we were amongst them, the people came together in such a glorious fashion, transcended their divides and differences, and agreed on a noble issue to save humanity. That, I believe, is a success story that we need to tell. So go out and watch We Are Many. Try to find a screening somewhere. It's usually in one of the obscure art house cinemas, but it's really worth us watching. And, you know, for an extra impetus, if you need any more, I star in it. So there you go.
I'm conscious that time's run out, so I'll just say this very quickly that the thing about the political party, we do mention it a little bit in our vision, although it's just a few words, but I think the political party is really more about engaging the individual. I don't think you can really change much in a political party because there's so much around that. And even if you did, unfortunately, you'll get the other stick that will be beating you with, which is the entryism. Once you start that, they'll start accusing you of entryism to try and take over. So you don't really win with that. But
There's nothing wrong with that, Arman. No, there's nothing wrong with that. Entryism is something that everyone needs to do. We are not ashamed of trying to enter into the main bodies of the establishment to try to influence it for the better of British society. Absolutely. Absolutely, there is no shame in that.
There's no shame in that from our perspective or for the person, but the thing
Why
is...
do you care about what Melanie Phillips says?
No, because the thing is, the way that this word is used, it is used as a negative word, and it has negative connotations. I don't think anyone should try and reinforce negative connotations. This is fine. Engaging is with the political sphere, which is what we say, which is very important. But I think the accusation is used much like any of these words are spun, and then they're used in a negative way to beat Muslims up. So I think you have to be careful. Like the governors, you know, being governors was nothing wrong with that. You know, in fact, the government was encouraging Muslims to become governors in schools. But when they did become governors, they were accused of entryist, and not only that was used to hit them hard.
But we don't stop encouraging.
No, of course. What I'm saying is that you have to just be careful how you
have to build your support base around.
Exactly.
Yes, we have to be careful about how it is that we entry and change.
No. If you go out there and say, look, I'm going to be part of the Conservative Party so that I will change the Conservative Party from within, that's not going to win you any points.
I want Muslims to start thinking about the next Muslim Prime Minister.
So why you don't make a Muslim party?
Need what? No. Because it doesn't. Because that's not how.
I'm gonna abuse my position as chair. Actually,
It doesn't work like that.
I'm gonna say two very quick things. I'm gonna say I think joining political parties is very important, and I'm actually gonna give just 10 seconds. I joined the Labour Party 8 years ago, and I joined Labour Friends of Palestine, and we have seen the party's position change on Palestine. So it can be done.
Yeah,
and our organisation is definitely growing. But I'm also going to abuse my position as chair to say that we can't carry on the debate much longer.
No,
so I'm going to let you ask you to finish up.
Maybe my point was misunderstood. I didn't mean that you don't join the political. It's quite the opposite. Like I say, it's something that we do encourage to engage, but I think you have to be careful of how you present yourself. With regards to the children's lives, I think it's, although I don't have much to comment, but I think it's people like you who've actually you've studied, you've done research, and we need to also
hear from people like yourselves who feed back into organisation to say, look, this is what the problem is, and this is my ideas of how to solve it. So rather than expect people who have no idea about the whole topic of children, etc., people like you are specialists, or at least have researched it, should be feeding back into that as well. And I think lastly, just to say that, I mean, the Al-Hussein project sounds like a very great way of marketing the achievements of Muslims, and I think water is one of it, but I think also there's things relating to blood donors as well, and Muslims also participating in that. And these are about giving positive messages, and I think we do beat ourselves too much. You know, Muslims have achieved a lot, and we do have good achievements. I mean, I received a message from one Sheikh Bilal, who has been, he was quite humble to say that, well, he wants, again, part of this marketing is to be a finalist in the National Diversity Awards, which out of 20,000 people, he's become one of the finalists. And we've seen people like Nadia Hussein, and we've seen people like, the football of the year, I don't know, I can't remember his name. All these people are achievers in society, and I think it's messages like that, and reinforcing messages like that, which actually will go against those people who try to put the Muslims down.
Thank you so much, and I'm sorry to rush you on your answer there. Okay, we're going to draw to a close this evening. Before we do, I'd like to thank SOAS very much for letting us have the venue. I'd also like